Good evening, everyone. If you could grab a seat. Good evening and welcome. My name is Matt LeBlanc. I'm a reporter at My Broadcasting Corporation. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight. We're going to start off with the land acknowledgement. We want to acknowledge the territory of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and the Attawandaron, upon which Haldimand-Norfolk stands, where all of us live and work. We strive to honor the Two Rose Wampum Belt Treaty as respectful neighbors on the land. We want to also pay respect to the elders of Turtle Island, both past and present, and extend the respect to all Indigenous peoples. If you could all stand for O Canada. Play ball. I would like to introduce Sue Downs now, President of the Simcoe and District Chamber of Commerce.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sue Downs. I'm the proud president of the Simcoe and District Chamber of Commerce. This evening, I'd like to recognize some people that are here from the Simcoe and District Chamber of Commerce. Catherine Akins, Vice Chair of the Simcoe and District Chamber of Commerce. Renee Van Kooten, Treasurer of the Simcoe and District Chamber of Commerce. And Directors Emma Brown, Kirby Sheik, and Wendy Brown. Gail Bowe as well. At this time, I'd also like to welcome Jim Norman, the President of the Simcoe and District Chamber of Commerce. And from the Real Estate Board, Prue Steiner, Director. Sandra Schmeiko, I hope I said your name right, Executive Director. And Gail Bowe, past President of the Simcoe and District Chamber of Commerce. Our chamber is pleased to be the host of tonight's All Candidates evening. The event supported by our friends at the Simcoe and District Real Estate Board, and the taping is brought to you by the Delhi Chamber of Commerce. Elections are an important part of the democratic process. The Simcoe and District Chamber of Commerce is dedicated to facilitating a process where you can find out what the candidates stand for, so you can make an informed decision on June the 2nd. The COVID-19 pandemic and economic crisis have created an unstable environment for Ontario business. Inflation, labor shortages, and supply chain backlogs have been exacerbated by the global state of an emergency. As the nonpartisan, independent voice of business, the Chamber's message to all parties is simple. It has never been more important for public policies to focus on measures that support business predictability and economic growth. We know recovery will be led by the business community, but Ontario's next government must commit to creating an environment to support, not stifle growth. I congratulate all candidates on their commitment to our community and for their leadership in seeking the opportunity to representing the riding of Haldimand-Norfolk at Queen's Park. And now I'd like to turn it over again to Matt LeBlanc.
Some housekeeping notes. If you have used the washroom, they are through that door over there. We prefer that you turn off your cell phones, please, so there's no text dings or phone calls going off. The event is being taped and will be available for viewing on the County Chamber's website and on YouTube. No questions will be taken from the floor. We ask that you do not applaud or boo or clap after each candidate speaks. Be mindful of the candidate's time. We want to see this evening go by pretty smoothly. We ask that everyone remain professional tonight. No heckling, please. That will not be tolerated. If you do, you'll be asked to leave the venue. If you need water, it's available at the bar for purchase. There will be a 10-minute break at 8 p.m. as well. The questions for this evening have been predetermined by the Executive Committee of the Chamber of Commerce. Questions have been submitted by members of the Simcoe and District Chamber of Commerce as well as the Ontario Chamber of Commerce. There are a total of 8 questions and 2 debate questions. All provincial candidates in the Haldimand-Norfolk riding were invited to attend this event. The candidates joining us this evening are Bobby Ann Brady, Independent; Aziz Chowdhury, Liberal Party; Eric Coverdale, Green Party; Nathan Hawkins, the New Blue Party; Sarah Lowe from the New Democrats; and Sheldon Simpson from the Ontario Party. Sue?
Okay, so part 1 will be the candidate opening remarks. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for opening and closing remarks and 1 minute to answer questions. A bell to be rung 15 seconds before the end of the 2 minutes and then again at the end of the 2 minutes. If the speaker disregards the bell, a horn will blow. Ooh, wow. Oh, there we go. And you will be immediately stopped. So I'm not sure whether we're going to cut your mic. I have no clue. So anyways, I'm going to call the candidates in order, and we're going to start off this evening with Bobby Ann Brady. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you to the Simcoe and District Chamber of Commerce for organizing this all-candidate night and for inviting us all to participate in this very important aspect of democracy. My name is Bobby Ann Brady. I've spent the past 23 years working for the people of Haldimand-Norfolk in my role as Executive Assistant to MPP Toby Barrett. Born and raised in Norfolk County, my love and respect for the area and for all of you is unmatched. The reason I am here is to ensure you are not dealt a bad hand. I was told by a member of the Premier's team just a few weeks ago that they could run a monkey in Haldimand-Norfolk as long as it has a PC logo on its back. I was offended by this, and so are people right across Haldimand-Norfolk. I assure you, I am the true conservative on the ballot. Over the past 23 years, I have spoken with so many of you, met with so many of you in your professional and volunteer roles. I understand that good local representation is what is most important to you. You are all principled, hard-working folk who deserve the very best. The proposal of a 40,000-person development at the Nanticoke Industrial Park comes up as we hit the doors in Haldimand-Norfolk. Although this is a Haldimand County proposal, this development will have significant impact on Norfolk County. Steel and refinery jobs will be lost, and just last week, I spoke to a commercial fishing operator out of Port Dover who is very worried how her business will be affected. Toby and I continue to fight against this development, and therefore special interest ensured I would not be on the ballot as a PC candidate. As I look around our beautiful riding, our beautiful county of Norfolk, I know we are struggling. Urban sprawl has hit parts of Norfolk. We see our downtown suffering, and on a personal front, there are many who are finding it difficult to pay for gas and food, the very necessities of life. Haldimand-Norfolk has an opportunity to be courageous and send a message that our vote and our money cannot be taken for granted. It's time political parties got their houses in order and realized they work for us, not the other way around.
Thank you. Up next is Aziz Chowdhury from the Liberal Party.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Simcoe Chamber of Commerce, for inviting us here tonight. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Aziz Chowdhury. I am your Liberal candidate for this wonderful riding of Haldimand-Norfolk. Before that, let me give you my brief introduction. I came with my family in Canada in 2006 with my wife and 4 kids. I live in Mississauga, Ontario. By profession, I am electrical engineer. Since last 25 years, I am working as an engineer. I worked in different provinces of Canada as well as in US. I have worked on multi-million-dollar projects and completed them successfully. I know how important is work for you here. When I came here, I was born and grown up in a small rural community. So once our party asked me, we need your help, do you want to go there? I immediately jumped here and came. It's really a beautiful area. This is what I wish to have, to go, and this is live here. I don't have a house here, but I wish if you guys elected me, I may think to move here. It's so nice. Beautiful farms, beautiful area, nice people. So I know there are a lot of issues. Last 20 years, there was not much done. We have a great industrial park here, and there was not enough work done to develop industry for jobs for our children. That's why, since I was just checking data, since 2006, population is declining. So I assure you that I will not make empty promise. I am a result-oriented guy. If you elect me, if you give me a chance, then I will not let you down. I will stand for you in the Queen Park. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Eric Coverdale, Green Party.
Thank you, Simcoe District Chamber of Commerce and Real Estate Board for hosting this important event to connect candidates with the electorate here tonight. My name is Eric Coverdale. I'm running in Haldimand-Norfolk to bring my vision for a prosperous future to Queen's Park. I'm an engineer by training, but I joined the Greens in 2011 after seeing lackluster performance from government and the private sector to move toward a sustainable future. Throughout my career, I've worked many demanding jobs as a design engineer, project manager, consultant, and most recently, the director of a public company. I now live with my wife on a farm in Norfolk County where we practice green living daily. In my spare time, I stay busy with do-it-yourself projects or having fun on the road, water, or sky with my motorcycle, boat, or airplane. I'm running to offer the residents of Haldimand and Norfolk optimism and hope. I possess the integrity and leadership residents deserve and so desperately need to build the Ontario we want. Most politicians are dangerously out of touch with the reality most Canadians are living, so they aren't delivering on the needs of the society. I'm someone who's experienced firsthand the harm that lockdowns, food and housing costs, and hallway health care have done to people. If elected, I will take a balanced and practical approach to pandemic management. The world is changing. We can't simply vote to go back to the way things were. Even if we could, we shouldn't, because the future can be much better. The future can be a utopia where everyone prospers. I have a vision for Haldimand and Norfolk where everyone cares and helps each other, as I already do with my neighbors. I believe in a future where nobody has to worry about high gas prices because we've all made the transition to electric. I believe in a future where people aren't divided by petty issues like in today's politics. Instead, we'll work together on solving real problems that matter to people. Thank you, and vote for Eric Coverdale, Green Party, June 2nd.
Thank you, Eric. Okay, next is Nathan Hawkins from the New Blue Party.
Good evening. First off, thank you for having me, and thank you for being here. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Nate Hawkins. I am the New Blue candidate for Haldimand-Norfolk. I am a lifelong resident of Haldimand. I grew up in Caledonia, and I live in Fisherville with my wife and 4 kids now on a small hobby farm. I have a Bachelor of Arts degree in criminal justice. In the past, I've served in the military as a reservist. Now I'm a full-time firefighter for the City of Toronto, where I've been for 6 years. I'm also a volunteer firefighter at our local fire station in Fisherville as an acting captain. Why am I running? 2 things. First off, for me, it's about my kids. Like I said, I have 4 kids. What kind of a province will they be inheriting from me? Mountains of debt, government overreach, a weakened democracy. I have to be able to look them in the eyes and say I did everything I could to give them a brighter future and a better Ontario. Secondly, it's about bringing representation back to this riding. Career politicians and political operatives care more about their careers than the people they represent, and that has to change. It's time for regular, everyday folks like you and I to step up and take back this riding. It's time to send a message to Doug Ford. He can't act like a Liberal for 4 years and appoint a Liberal candidate and expect to have the support of Haldimand-Norfolk. In my opinion, the most important job of an MPP is to listen, and I'm excited to be here today to listen to the people of Haldimand-Norfolk and answer their questions. Thank you.
Sarah Lowe, New Democratic Party.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for hosting this event and for having us here this evening. My name is Sarah Lowe, and I'm the NDP candidate here in Haldimand-Norfolk. I have lived in Caledonia with my husband and 2 daughters for the last 14 years. We moved from Hamilton in 2008. I currently work as a constituency assistant for MPP Andrea Horvath in Hamilton Centre, and I have been employed with the NDP for the last 6 years. I'm here tonight to assure all of you that the NDP has your best interests at heart. And I mean small business best interests at heart. And I know that some of you are shaking your head and you might not believe it, but I'm here tonight to share our policy, share our platform with you, and encourage you to make a change on June 2nd. We have a fully costed platform, one that will see the deficit be taken care of in 6 years. It's a bold, bold plan with lots of spending. You know, $18 million that were to overhaul social assistance, 13.6 billion for social assistance, $13.6 billion in health care, long-term care, home care, billions on schools, $3 billion on schools. Now, all of this can be accomplished. 800 billion, not 800 billion, sorry, that's a lot of money. $2.9 billion for affordable and low-income housing. This is all possible, and it won't be on the backs of small business. This will be on the backs of those who can afford to pay. Wealthy developers, wealthy corporations, people that we don't know, people that have no impact on our lives except to make lives more expensive and unaffordable. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Next is Sheldon Simpson from the Ontario Party.
Good evening. Thanks to everybody for coming out. My name is Sheldon Simpson. I am your Ontario Party candidate for Haldimand-Norfolk. We've been a resident of Haldimand in Dunnville now for a little over a year and a half. Prior to that, we lived rural for about 20 years. It was interesting. For 20 years, we looked for a community. We couldn't find one. We had very much a commuter community, and we didn't have the same connections that we have found here in Haldimand-Norfolk. Prior to that, or actually what I do now is I'm a professional firefighter and an acting captain. I started that as a volunteer. I've been doing that for 15 years at this point. We've also started a couple of successful small businesses, my wife and I. I'm a father of 2. My wife and I have been married together for 17 plus years at this point. I've graduated with a Scholars Award from police studies programs. I've also studied criminal psychology and developmental psychology. I was a volunteer with Victim Services. That's one of the main volunteer things that I used to participate with over the years. But there's been many volunteer before that as well. I personally have very true conservative traditional values, I would say. I mean, you've got your fiscal conservative, your social conservative. I would consider myself to be more of a traditional conservative. The main reason I'm up here today and I'm running is the same reason that you're seeing quite a few changes on the political landscape these days. I worry about the future for the children. I personally have been touched by the healthcare system. I've seen it professionally, and I've seen it personally when my families have been in the hospitals, sick and dying. I've had families in the nursing home system, and I've seen a lot of the deficiencies on that as well. And with the children in the school system, I'm very, very concerned about the way the school system and the education system is set up today. So I stand before you offering a choice. We return the common people to the House of Commons, or we continue going down the same path that we've been on for so long, where we elect legacy politicians, politicians who have been involved in politics for numbers of years. I think they've had their time. It's time we return it to us, the people. Thank you.
All right, we're going to go into the first question of the night. A reminder to you guys over here that we have 1 minute to answer the questions. We'll be going again in alphabetical order. Please listen for the bell. The first question that we have here is that a number of business categories were hit hard throughout the pandemic. What are your party's plans for economic growth and recovery that will have a positive impact on businesses here in Haldimand-Norfolk? And we're going to start off with Bobby Ann.
While amplified by the public health and economic crisis, decades of underinvestment in infrastructure and public policy choices have led to the fragile supply chains across many sectors in our province and in our local communities. In order to recover financially, we need to see bold, whole-of-government action to strengthen our domestic competitiveness and supply chain resilience. We need to lean on some of the folks that we have in our very community that are not being leaned on, while provincial and federal governments have taken steps to strengthen these supply chains and domestic manufacturing in Ontario. Our businesses are facing enormous challenges when it comes to supply and inventory management. This type of unpredictability threatens business continuity and economic recovery. Provincial and federal governments have a responsibility to investigate where they should be making infrastructure investments to ensure the reliability for businesses right across the province.
Aziz?
Yes. So during the pandemic, all big corporations, they were open, and who badly hit, those were the small business. So this is what our party plan is, that we will eliminate corporation tax for 2 years for small business, which are deeply hurt by the pandemic. We will loan an additional $300 million to tens of thousands of small business to recover from the losses. We will also eliminate corporation fees for new business startup. We will reduce regulatory burden on small businesses. We will cap credit card fee charge to businesses. We will launch one-stop 311 service to small businesses. We will also repeal Bill 124, so our workers have, healthcare workers have better salary. In addition, we will, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Aziz. Eric, you're next.
So the Green Party of Ontario recognizes that we're in a situation right now where we're not just recovering from a pandemic, but we're on a transitional trajectory. We need to transition away from fossil fuels toward renewable energy. And it's one of the biggest, it's like a whole new industrial revolution just waiting to happen, and businesses should be ready to capitalize on that. So the Green Party of Ontario is planning to help businesses in this regard by focusing at least 20% of the overall benefits of public investments to reduce climate pollution on disadvantaged communities. So certain ways that we might do that, for example, is we want to offer a $15,000 to $20,000 rebate for people to do energy retrofits in their homes. That's going to create tens of thousands of green jobs overnight. Okay. We're going to redirect annual $7 billion taxpayer subsidy for electricity prices to support energy efficiency and climate action, maintaining energy subsidies only to those in need, while also providing free access to upgrades that lower energy costs and consumption. Also, we want to... Okay, there we go.
Thank you, Eric. Nate, you're next.
So I actually talked to a Simcoe business owner this afternoon on the phone who has been completely left behind. He opened his business at the end of 2019, and so he was not eligible for any of the government help. And he's been hit so hard. He's lost thousands upon thousands of dollars in this business that he's invested. So this is not good for business. What the government's done is wrong. We want to cut taxes like the PCs used to be about. The New Blue has a bold new platform called the New Blueprint. We want to cut the HST from 13 to 10%, and we want to eliminate the carbon tax. In Ontario, we actually have two carbon taxes. There's Doug Ford's industrial carbon tax, and there's Justin Trudeau's imposed carbon tax that we have. So we need to get rid of those carbon taxes because it hurts our competitiveness and it hurts our ability to compete on the world stage. We also want to slash hydro rates, and through those measures, we want to get out of the way, basically, and let businesses do what they do best, make money. Thank you.
Thank you, Nate. Sarah?
All right, make it quick. We will reduce corporate income tax for small businesses by 3.2%, but we will go back to 13%, a much fairer tax rate for large corporations. We will introduce a small business recovery grant, one payment in 2022, one payment in 2023. Unlike Ford's disastrous small business grant, our grant will be user-friendly, transparent, responsible to business owners, and paid out in a timely manner. We will work with commercial insurance companies to ensure that insurance is affordable for small businesses, and not like our plans with the Residential Tenancies Act. We will standardize lease agreements and work towards rent guidelines for commercial tenants. Perhaps what is most important is a commitment from the NDP that we will never let you suffer the way you have in the last 2 years. If we're ever in this position again, we will be ready. We'll be ready immediately with immediate supports so that workers and their employees can have certainty in their lives.
Thank you, Sarah. And Sheldon.
So one of the best ways to get an economy going again is, of course, to get people spending money. So one of the things that we would propose right off the bat is to look at some places where we can cut some of those taxes to stimulate spending and develop economic growth. We need to put some more business support into place, and we need to decrease a lot of the red tape and the administrative costs that are barriers to entry when it comes to starting small businesses. My wife and I, again, we were in the process, and we still today are trying to build a small business. And a lot of the same issues that we saw during the pandemic response, we found ourselves that we fell right in between the cracks, right at one of the most difficult times to actually start a business. So another thing that I think is really important is that we actually do Chamber of Support Commerce, and we give some more support to the Chambers of Commerce because it's a great place where businesses can come, start, and get those resources and access to those resources. Yeah, it just throws me for a loop. And the another thing that we're looking at is also creating some energy corridors so that we can utilize the resources right here at home. We have one of the most resource-rich locations, and I don't want to hear that horn, but we'll go from there. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, question number 2. Ontario Economic Report 2022 found over 60% of businesses are experiencing labor shortages and expect to continue to face them over the next year. How do you plan to address these long-standing shortages that have been worsened by the pandemic, and what are your plans to support the workforce of the future? So we'll start off with Aziz.
Okay. Our party planned that we will increase the basic wage to $16 if we are elected. We will also have a immigration program same like Quebec have. So Ontario will bring trained professionals from overseas for a fast immigration. We will also ensure that it's less red tape for migrant workers coming here on our for our farming operation. We will also reduce the HST for the prepared food up to $20. We will repeal Bill 124 to make minimum basic wage $25 for healthcare professionals. We will also bring new schools. We invest in schools. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Eric?
So yeah, this is not working. There we go. Green Party of Ontario recognizes that there are some major issues with our social safety net, and we want to implement a universal basic income. One of the problems that we have with ODSP in Ontario Works is that people get into these systems and they kind of get stuck there, and there's not a lot of mobility for them to go back to work, and they worry if they start working that they might lose their benefits, and that's a big problem. So we want to overhaul that social safety net so that a lot of the people that are on these programs will go out and re-enter the workforce. And these are exactly the kinds of jobs that a lot of businesses are saying that they need right now. So that's a big part of the problem right there that we can solve just with one program. Thanks.
Hello. This has been a huge issue in Norfolk during the pandemic. Farmers were having a really hard time getting migrant workers in. The government was making it very difficult with lots of red tape. So the New Blue Party, we want to ensure that farmers can get those migrant workers in so we can get that food on our tables, and we can have that economic engine of the farmers running full speed as much as we can. The New Blue Party is about common sense principles, basically, right? So why are we spending tens of millions and millions of dollars sending people, for example, say Jim, to get a Bachelor of Arts degree in basket weaving when we can pay for him? You maybe say, Jim, sorry, we don't need basket weavers anymore. We actually need plumbers. So if you want to be a plumber, we will pay for your education. It could be free and meet that trade. But basket weaving, sorry, you're on your own. You got to pay for that yourself. So just getting people trained for the jobs that we need and spending our money wisely. Thank you.
Sarah?
All right, obviously, this is a huge issue in this area, and the NDP has a plan to help folks. First of all, we would raise the minimum wage. It's not popular with everyone, but it is a way to get people back into the workforce. We would raise the minimum wage starting this year, or starting next year, at $16, and then by 2026, it would be $20 an hour. We also would introduce an Ontario benefits plan, and that would be a basket of benefits that every single worker can take with them to every single job. This is dental care, pharmacare, sick time. These are guaranteed benefits no matter where you work. It doesn't matter if you work full-time, part-time, temporary, you contract. These are your benefits. You take them with them wherever you go. We would also invest in high school trades and shop classes. Thousands of new jobs in the new green economy and certifications. Thank you.
Sheldon?
So I find that an ironic number. Actually, 60% of businesses experiencing labor shortages. Ironically, 60% of Ontarians are also saying they're having trouble putting food on the table and meeting the minimum requirements for their bills. I think part of the area for sure we do suffer here, because we do have a lot of agriculture, is we are finding issues with bringing migrant workers in with a lot of the mandates and the restrictions on them, and a lot of them just don't make sense. So it's something we certainly have to address to make sure that, number one, agriculture can get their migrant workers in to do things, and so we don't have fields of asparagus going rotten that basically just aren't getting picked. But that also starts to drive the economy on multiple levels, and it brings more food to market, and it brings people out spending money. We also have to stop de-incentivizing people to stay at home, or stop incentivizing people to stay at home. Bell. We have a lot of support systems that are basically keeping people at home where it's easier for them to work, including people on disability. To a degree, they want to be contributing members of society, so we have to offer some kind of alternative for them to, there's the bell. Check out our platform.
Thank you. And next, Bobby Ann.
So I'm just going to build actually on what Sheldon and some of the others were saying here. We see labor shortages all over the province. You can drive right down the Queensway and every other business help wanted sign. First and foremost, we have to stop paying people, able-bodied people, to stay home and create those incentives for them to work. We are not to confuse those folks with those who are having trouble paying the bills and putting gas in the tank. Those are the working poor, and they exist as well. Those on ODSP, I did extensive research a few years ago for a white paper. There is a cadre of folks on ODSP who really want to get out there and work. They can't work 40 hours a week, but they can work 15 or 20 hours a week. And yet we pay them to stay home, and because we claw back those earnings. So let them keep those earnings, let them get above the poverty line, allow them to be contributing members to our society, and it'll help fill some of those employment gaps we're seeing.
All right, for the next question, we're going to be starting it off with Eric, and then you don't need to have us come here and tell you who's next. You can go in that order. So the next question is, how are you going to help children with accessing the extra services they require in school, such as funding for mental health, physical, and wellness needs?
Okay, so Green Party of Ontario, I don't believe makes a distinction between folks in school and elsewhere in the general population, but the Green Party does want to expand mental health services to be covered 10% of the OHIP budget. So that's a massive increase of wherever it is right now. I don't even think it's 1% of our healthcare budget goes into mental health services. So yeah, that's basically what the Green Party is doing for mental health there. Thank you.
My turn. Our kids are having a really hard time throughout the pandemic. They were hit the hardest disproportionately. We know that mental health of youth was more adversely affected than any other age group by the lockdowns and school closures, and this has led to massive spikes in childhood depression and anxiety. So I would really be advocating for more local mental health supports for our kids to get them back on track to where they need to be thriving and learning. I think just because we're in a rural setting, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't be able to access all of the mental health services and all of the helps that people can get in urban settings. So I would be really advocating at Queen's Park to get those localized mental health services. The pandemic has also shown that parents want to decide where their kids go to school and how their kids are educated. If they want to send their kids to a school with no mass or private schools, or homeschools, we want to give people the flexibility to do so. So, yeah, let's equip our kids and our families with the tools they need to succeed and to thrive. Thank you.
First of all, the NDP has promised and will bring mental health under OHIP, first and foremost. Secondly, we will develop an organization or a program called Mental Health Ontario, which will coordinate mental health services across the entire province. We will also reduce the wait list for children's mental health to 30 days, not the years that it is now. And in schools, we are committed to bringing in mental health and child and youth workers in schools at all times so children have access to those services while they're in school. Thank you.
I think bringing mental health under the OHIP is a fantastic idea, and I think that's an idea that a lot of people can get behind and support for sure. At the Ontario Party, we have a policy where we also believe that we should be funding the student, not necessarily the organization. It's part of our education policy, where we propose a credit type of system that would follow the student wherever they go. Not everybody learns the same way, and not everybody feels pressures in the same way. So in order to have children out in the education system learning in the best way that they're going to take the most knowledge away from it, we propose a system that would follow the student depending on where they choose to go, whether they go to a public school, whether they go to a private school, whether they go to a charter school, or whether they're homeschooled. This allows the parents to have considerably more involvement in the child's education, but also in their mental health. That bell, man. Anyway, yeah, it's in the Ontario Party platform, and I do think it's a really good proposal to address the needs of the children, and it allows the parents to be more engaged and more involved with what they need to be.
Okay, one priority is to prepare Ontario students for success by improving their academic achievement while equipping them with the skills and knowledge they need to succeed in science, technology, engineering, and math. Along with that, I propose that Ontario implement a mental health aspect to the Ontario curriculum. Students are behind. To catch students up academically, Ontario needs to expand its summer learning opportunities as well as expand teacher-led online tutoring. Ontario also has to make good on its promise to invest in the student mental health strategy. In order to respond both now and in the future to learning disruptions caused by pandemics, the Ministry of Education has to assess the impact of the pandemic on Ontario students and the results of the ministry's efforts on an ongoing basis.
Yes. During the COVID pandemic, the mental health crisis increased overall, and it increased in children also. Ford government, they cut grant for the children with autism and other diseases. Saving cannot be made cutting benefit for the pupils. Saving should be made by better economic plan. So our government have planned to, we will pay $10 per day for child care, up to $50 per day to the parents. We will also increase 3,000 more mental health professionals' job so they can work in hospitals and support the children's needs. We will also pay nurses and doctors who work remotely. We will waive their tuition fees and loans, so everywhere this is available. Thank you.
The next question is a debate question. The rules of the debate questions are, it's 5 minutes in total for debate time. Candidates will stay on the same question order that we've been going. The candidates speaking first will answer first. So Nate, you'll be the first person to answer. And the other candidates will have the option to comment on it by raising their hand. I'll make a note. And then they'll have 45 seconds to comment on that. Candidates can speak to the question only twice unless the candidate's comment is directed at another candidate, in which case they can respond back. The bells will be going off at 30 and 45. The debate question, starting with you, Nate, is the housing affordability crisis is rooted in a serious lack of supply. If elected, how would you ensure more homes are built in Haldimand-Norfolk?
Yeah, so that's a big issue, housing affordability and the cost of living. So I'm going door to door with lots and meeting lots of parents. And as a parent myself, people are concerned about their kids being able to afford a home. A big part of increasing affordability for homes without paving over all of our farmland is increasing the density in urban areas that we already have, like creating townhouses and low rises. And this will allow first-time home buyers an opportunity to access the market. We want to eliminate red tape as well. So encouraging municipalities to build garden suites, allow garden suites to be built, allow multi-generational uses of property, and then again, that'll increase the density that we do have.
All right, Aziz, I saw you put your hand up first.
Ontario Liberal have a plan to build 1.5 million homes in next 10 years. I know there's a housing crisis in Haldimand-Norfolk. There is available land in Townsend. We have to build that. That's a great place to build. We can construct high-rise buildings for small space, and more people can be accommodated. There's a nice view, lake view. People will like it. So we have to go with modern building techniques, more economically friendly, okay, more environment friendly, and with much better facilities for our seniors, our pupils, because where they can have gym, other things available in one location.
Bobby Ann?
So the province needs to work with its municipal partners on this, because you can take a house in Toronto, and if you want to turn it into a mansion for a family of 3 or 4, you can do that. But in Norfolk County, Haldimand-Norfolk, if you want to take a house and turn it into a duplex or a triplex, the red tape and associated bureaucracy associated with that makes it very, very difficult and turns people off from doing that, where you could actually turn that house into a home for 2 or 3 families.
Sarah?
We are committed to also building 1.5 million new homes. Included in that is affordable housing and market rent housing. For first-time home buyers, we're going to help with the financing with shared equity loans. Repayments can be made when the property is sold, and the owners also have the option to buy back the government's share at any time. These will be income tested, and only for those who don't own a home already. What we need here is we need first-time home buyers. We don't need wealthy investors globbing on to a great program. We have enough wealthy investors.
Sheldon?
When we talk about housing affordability and the fact that we do need more housing, I think housing density is not a half-bad solution. I think it's something that we could certainly explore. I don't think adding 42,000 homes to a community that has 48,000 addresses currently is necessarily the solution. I think it has to come down to the fact that we need to have sustainable development, and it's something that we have to look at. We have a policy right now where we want to put a moratorium on foreign ownership, because right now, part of the reason that the housing costs are so high and houses are sitting empty waiting for rent is we have foreign ownership coming in and buying a lot of this housing up. And then it's not available for the general Canadian public or the Ontario public or our children as they grow up. They have no way of getting a hold of the market because it's just too expensive. If we can bring the costs down and make availability better, then we have an actual solution.
Bobby Ann, you raised your hand again?
Sure. I was just going to maybe correct the record that it's 15,000 homes and 40,000 people at the Nanticoke Industrial Park. That's what's being proposed from Haldimand County. So it's not actually 40,000 homes, it's 40,000 people.
I believe Eric was on.
Yeah, so just about the green policies here. So we want to build 182,000 new permanently affordable community housing rental homes over the next decade, including 60,000 permanent support homes. We want to mandate inclusionary zoning and require a minimum of 20% affordable units in any housing project. That would include the one that, if it were to go forward in Nanticoke. We want to create a seed fund for cooperative housing through direct funding and mortgage support. We want to freeze urban boundaries right away, because that's the big problem that we could have in this problem as well, is all this housing development eating away at all the farmland in the area. And we want to develop a 15-minute neighborhood framework that suits a variety of towns and cities across the province by working with municipalities on rezoning.
And Sarah, I think you have a few seconds left, but go ahead.
The NDP is going to introduce an annual speculation and vacancy tax. modeled after what we see in British Columbia. It will apply to both domestic and foreign speculators, and proceeds from these taxes will go towards programs to build affordable housing. And we'll stop real estate investors from pushing families out of home ownership by aggressively outbidding, forcing families who might have been able to buy a home now have no choice but to rent from these real estate investors. This would be done through capping investor purchases on resale homes.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, so the next question is, where we'll start with Sarah. We know that we cannot have a strong business community without a resilient healthcare system. How would you bolster healthcare in Haldimand-Norfolk and assist those who are in need of healthcare but are told they must wait 6 to 12 months or longer?
Part of the issue in Haldimand-Norfolk is lack of access. I've spoken to many people who have to drive hours to see a family doctor, never mind a specialist. The wait times to see specialists across the province, never mind in smaller communities, is years if it's not deemed an emergency. This is untenable. People are sick, people have to take out stitches on their own because they can't get health care or they can't get home care. The NDP would invest in all across the province and in every rural community that needs them, community health centers. So we could have a community health center here in Norfolk. We could have one in Haldimand. We could have more than one in each of our areas. And in these community health centers will be a group of physicians, a group of specialists, people that can help with wound care, they can help with dietitian, they can help with all sorts of things. And these people will be in our neighborhoods. In Simcoe, there'll be a bus ride away.
Healthcare is definitely in trouble. We've had hallway medicine for decades. We routinely run our hospitals at 95 to 105% capacity. It's not new to the pandemic. If this is the catalyst for change, then maybe some good can come out of this. One of the biggest problems we're seeing is a lot of healthcare workers, doctors, nurses, they're experiencing high levels of burnout, huge levels of demand. And then we go and we put Bill C-124, which was voted in by the Conservative Party, the previous Conservative Party, in order to lock their wages at 1% to increase the burnout and the stress in their families. We have to repeal bills like that so that, number one, our workers are actually more available and ready to go. I propose for areas like Haldimand-Norfolk, we look at advanced care paramedics and rapid response units to close some of the distance gaps that we have. And we also propose in the Ontario Party healthcare alternatives so that people have a choice when they need to go get an MRI. Perhaps they want to go to a private location. We have this in other provinces and we've seen it all over the world, and it reduces an awful lot of stress and an awful lot of load on the existing public healthcare system, because it makes available more choices and options for people to go to. I beat it.
So yes, I actually issued a news release a few weeks ago with respect to our healthcare workers. They went from heroes to zeros very quickly. And I speak to a lot of our nurses. I have a neighbor that's a nurse, and she tells me about the stress that she endures on a daily basis and the number of her co-workers who are just getting up and leaving. One thing that we can do, if we build hospitals and we don't have the people to work in them, what good is the new hospital? What we do have in Ontario is 20,000 internationally educated nurses. They're called IENs. And they could be on the front line. They could have been on the front line during COVID, and yet red tape kept them sidelined. Another thing that we have to look at in our healthcare system in order to have an integrated healthcare system is to look at home and community care. We all know seniors do better when they're in their home, being looked after in their home. So in order to fix our healthcare issues, we've also got to fix home care.
Yes. I was just checking online. I saw that Norfolk Hospital have 106 beds capacity. So that's really not enough capacity for this large population. Our Ontario Liberal Party plan is to increase overall hospital beds capacity by 20%. We will also hire 100,000 more healthcare professionals and doctors in next 6 years. So everywhere doctors are available. We will provide more funding for local community hospitals, and we will build 15 new hospitals and community health center. We will train 3,000 new healthcare professionals. We will have 15,000 more home supporting professionals who can help people at home. Keep going? Okay. Yes. So we will also cover the tuition fee. As Bobby mentioned, we cover the tuition fee for the doctors and nurses who want to work in rural community. Just to, okay, I have said you're well.
Okay, everyone. So, yeah, Haldimand-Norfolk is definitely way underserviced for healthcare services relative to other ridings, especially compared to the GTA, and it's really makes no sense considering how, you know, the population we have and the growth that is really coming to us. So, I think, you know, we should be talking about building all new hospitals here, and there's really nothing that specific in Green Platform about that, but that's something that I would personally want to champion. Right out of the platform book, there are a few things that that the government really should be doing to try to alleviate the burden on the healthcare system with preventative medicine. So we want to support and promote healthy behaviors to prevent disease and reduce risk factors such as poor nutrition and smoking. We want to expand access to family health teams in communities across the province and increase opportunities for physicians to join team-based models of care, including a diverse array of healthcare providers in the teams to ensure holistic, connective, and comprehensive approach to health. And we want to increase options for primary care, such as community health centers and nurse practitioner-led clinics, to ensure access to non-urgent 24/7 care.
So access to a wait list is not access to healthcare. We currently have 420,000 surgical procedures and 2.5 million backlog diagnostic tests in this province. So we have to invest in healthcare, but we also have to be creative and not continue to throw money at the system over and over. It's not sustainable. So at the New Blue Party, we're advocating for some choice in healthcare. What does that look like? If you go to Saskatchewan, Alberta, Quebec, you can actually go to a private MRI clinic and get an MRI. In Ontario, you can't do that. So by opening up these MRI clinics, we can clear that backlog, save the province money. Another thing I'd like to see happen is seniors. We know that seniors want to stay at their house, in their homes, right? So by giving seniors their healthcare dollars maybe before they go to long-term care, they might be able to retrofit their house, or they could pay a family member to take care of them instead. And then that would save the province money because we don't have to pay a professional nurse or a PSW. A family member could stay with them. So just giving that flexibility to people. Thank you.
Now, Gail down there, we're doing a debate question next, so if you want to get the bell ready for earlier. Sheldon, you're going to answer first. Same song and dance as before. 45 seconds to answer. Raise your hand if you want to chime in. 5 minutes in total, and hopefully we get everyone in. If we don't get you in, I'm sure you all have websites that we can all go to and see what you think about it. The question is, Empire Communities purchased land near the industrial lands in Nanticoke, proposing 15,000 new residential homes. Are you in support, and why?
I think one of the biggest things, and I mentioned earlier, is we have to look at sustainable growth. It can't be something that, number one, if we're taking residential surveys and we're talking to people and we're saying, listen, what is the general consensus right now in Haldimand-Norfolk? If the general consensus is that people don't want it, well then that's the general consensus, and that's something that we should have to look at. We can certainly explore developmental growth, but we also have to consider there's an infrastructure requirement here. When we look at the infrastructure now, we already see our roads are in kind of rough shape in some spots. We see our wastewater plants aren't in the best condition. Who's going to be responsible for that infrastructure if we bring in that many people without some kind of sustained development? And who's going to be responsible to the residents of Haldimand-Norfolk if it's not what we want? We don't want to turn into a commuter town because I'm out of time.
Bobby Ann?
Yeah, I'm very much opposed to this project. I actually watched this right from the beginning when Stelco showed up at a committee of the whole meeting at Haldimand County and expressed their confusion as to how they learned about the sale of the 4,200 acres of land in the media. And to which Haldimand County and the mayor/PC candidate said, we don't have to consult with you. This is your biggest employer, your biggest tax base. You should be consulting with these folks. It's mind-boggling that anyone thinks that bringing 40,000 people to an industrial park is a good idea. They'll need a hospital, they'll need a school. And who's going to pay for that? You and I. We're going to pay for that because the developer is going to be long gone at that time.
Eric?
Yes. For the industrial,
Sorry, Caesar. Yeah, I had my hand up
Sorry,
first.
sorry, Eric. I apologize.
Yeah, so the Green Party of Ontario, we want to work collaboratively with municipalities on province-wide, yes, in my backyard initiatives to raise awareness of the benefits of infill housing with existing neighborhoods, first and foremost. So, this is something that would really be considered before that kind of a one-off big development with one developer in that case. And if something like this were to be considered, I think they need to be really careful about how they're going about it. They really can't just, slap some houses up and walk away like that. Like, there needs to be a real, as Bobby Ann was saying, there needs to be hospitals, there needs to be jobs. Like, we want to have folks living where they can work and where they can play and live their whole lives is really the whole Green Party philosophy, right? Nothing else makes sense, especially from an energy use perspective with all the commuting.
And Nate?
Yeah, so I think it's crazy, doubling the population of Haldimand overnight in a community. But it's not necessarily what I think, it's about what you guys think. And we have a process for these things where we get to consult with people. But we have a situation in Ontario where it's a lengthy, complicated process to get developmental approvals unless you know the right people. Do you have the right connections with the PC or Liberal parties? If you do, it's a piece of cake. You get to skip the local democratic process and get an MZO, which is a ministerial zoning order. No need to consult with the local people. So, yeah, it depends on your connections, you can get things done. We need to cut red tape across the board. We have a process, it needs to be followed, and there should be no special treatment for special insiders.
Sheldon, you had your hand up again?
I think one proposal we could look at when we are looking at sustainable development, again, if this is not what the general public wants, then it's not something we should be exploring. But I do think a great proposal would be to go to the builders. And I know I've seen from personal experience where I've worked before, Mattamy Homes is a huge home builder. And one of the components of building in a municipality is we put them on the hook for some of that infrastructure. We say, listen, if you're going to build this many homes, you're going to make a lot of money on this. You're going to have to build us a couple of fire halls. You're going to have to put in a medical facility. You're going to have to build us some of these facilities that we're going to need for that infrastructure. And we put them on the hook for it. But we do still have to remember, while we're looking at this, we are going to be the ones who are footing the bill for the long-term operating expenses. So we can levy some of the expenses of the initial infrastructure costs when we look at sustainable development, but I am against this much.
And then a few seconds left, I believe, but Aziz, you had your hand up next.
yes. So, first thing, if we want to keep our children and grandchildren here, then we have to generate jobs in this region. And building house doesn't create job for the children. They will move away from you. We have a wonderful place, industrial park, where we have all the facilities. We have electricity, we're close to water, we have a land. Only we need to invite environment-friendly industrialist here to construct an industry here, create job for our youth, our children. So building 40,000 house, 15,000 house for 40,000 people will overload the existing hospital, our schools. There's no plan for that one. I think we should build houses where available land, and we should develop industry here. And this huge transmission line, it is 4 gigawatt. It can feed up to 3 million homes.
Who knew a bell could be so angry?
I think she was getting close to the horn there at that point in time. Oh, there we go. Okay, so the next question will start with Bobby Ann. Broadband, internet, and cellular service are crucial for businesses in this county. What actions would you take to support its expansion and fast-track it for the county?
So I've been part of many of the announcements for broadband locally. It is something that the PC government did really attempt to accelerate, and it's a complicated one. It's a very complicated system to actually work through. But the pandemic really shone a light on the areas that were lacking proper broadband. And I think that the government right now is working to rectify that. So I don't really have any criticisms of the the current government and how they're handling broadband internet service. I know it's not fast enough for all of you who don't have it, but there has been a lot of investments made in this province with respect to internet service. It can always be better, and like I say, with everyone at home, I struggled with the 2 kids online during COVID, and all of us trying to do our thing. It was tough.
Yes, internet is the basic thing nowadays. During this pandemic, we learned that how important is it. I was working 2 years from home for remote working. We can save travel time. We can save, money for that. We are paying for travel. We can save environment. So it's really important. Ontario Liberal have planned to provide high-speed internet service to rural community within 5 years. So we will provide, because this is the thing, you can work from home, you can stay with your family, you can, if you want to go, that's fine, but it helps our environment indirectly. You don't drive a car, you are not polluting, you are saving environment. So because of this environmental changes, our temperature is changing every year. We have more hot days, more cold days. It's impacting our food security. You don't have good crops. Somewhere there's a flood. So electricity outage.
So I wouldn't be able to be living here in Norfolk County if it wasn't for high-speed internet. Even still, when I moved here, I went from 200 megabytes per second down to 25 megabytes per second. I paid twice the cost for that much lower speed. So I'm still feeling a real pinch there. And yeah, I think really what is needed, I think the technology is rolling out pretty rapidly. I'm not sure if some governments on the federal level, they were campaigning on rolling out high speed by a certain year to 90% of residents. But I believe that the rollout is happening very fast, but it's going to be a price issue. Pricing needs to be supported for some, especially for people in very remote areas. Starlink is going to be available, which is very fast. It's as fast as anything, but the cost is going to be the problem. So Green Party would be looking to subsidize some people with some of those higher costs to be borne.
25 megabytes per second? I wish I had that. The struggle is real. I have line of sight internet at my own house. And I know the municipal government in Haldimand has been rolling out high-speed internet to the rural areas in conjunction with the province, I believe. And I would want to continue that rollout. It'll help farmers modernize and allow them to use more modern equipment and technology. And if we can do that and help our farmers, then we need to do that. I'd also want to see, I don't want the government to foot the bill, though. I think we need to have private companies get in there and make the investments as well, because they're going to be making the money off of it. So as much as we can incorporate private interest, I would be looking into that.
So as we've heard at the table, broadband is obviously a huge issue in areas all over the riding. I think it varies sometimes. I mean, I'm in Caledonia and sometimes it's not great. I have friends in Long Point who are always complaining about lack of access. There's so many things at play here, right? Now, after COVID, having kids at home, trying to learn online, going back and forth, how difficult that was, parents at home working from home, we absolutely have to have access to high-speed internet. It is basic. We are living in the southern part of Ontario. It shouldn't be this difficult. But what is clear, and as Bobby Ann, who sounds like she's worked a fair bit on this, it's not that simple. And we also need to lean in on the federal government. The federal government, this is part of their jurisdiction. The CRTC, telecommunications, the federal government has a role to play here, and we need to lean on them to help bring broadband to our entire community.
We have the same problem. We live rural and our internet is terrible at the best of times. But I think one of the main things, we do actually have some solutions that are relatively easy. Right now, as I've been spending a lot of time driving across Haldimand and Norfolk County, there's areas where I don't get any signal, but somebody who's in the car with me does. So we have a lot of infrastructure that's out there, but right now it's protected by companies that are posting record profits in the billions of dollars, and they're protecting their towers, and they're not allowing anybody else access to them. So I think one of the things that we could do is let's say, listen, you guys are making billions of dollars. This is a critical component of our infrastructure. And it's also part of our economic development for businesses and growth. If we go to those towers and we say, listen, you have to make these towers available to everybody, it's just part of the component. And that way we have the ability to jump from tower to tower. We can actually share some of this, the capacity that's there. I also have noticed that Haldimand does tend to suffer a little bit less than Norfolk, so I think a lot of our efforts need to be focused in Norfolk County, because I've noticed that there is considerably less available here, and we support increasing.
We're going to start with
More
Z.
stuff.
We're going to start with the Z's for the next question. Supply chain issues and inflammatory pressures have hampered business competitiveness throughout this pandemic. What actions would you take to ensure their resiliency?
Yes, just a minute. I have to check my note. Give me a minute.
Could you repeat the question while he's looking at his notes there?
Oh, I'd love to. Supply chain issues and inflammation pressures have hampered business competitiveness throughout this pandemic. What action would you take to ensure their resiliency?
A leniency? What was the last word?
Resiliency.
Resiliency.
Got it.
Okay. Yes, I understand, there is supply chain issue and farmers need to sell their products to major companies. Sometimes big companies, they take benefit and not paying proper cost to our farmers. Ontario Liberal will introduce a fair supply chain management control, which controls mega companies for stopping for unfair negotiation. We will ensure food supply chain to be more resilient by preserving farmland, support substantial farming techniques, and sustainable farming techniques. We will work with federal government for carbon tax rebate. Ford government have anti-green belt agenda. We will bring more land under green belt in collaboration with community.
Okay, so first thing is COVID-19 caused all of these supply bottlenecks, and really it was the government's response to it that caused everything. There's a very intricate supply chain, set up globally all over the world, and it was intentionally shut down, and it was never meant to be, shut down and restarted like that. So it's going to take a long time for these kinks to work their way out of the system, and but basically to allow it to come back, the first thing that needs to happen is the government needs to get out of the way and just let people get back to doing business. Also, resiliency-wise, the Green Party of Ontario supports local economies. So local economies are going to be much more resilient to any kinds of future shocks like a pandemic in the future. And not only will that support more jobs for everyday people, but it'll have that extra added benefit of the resilience.
Well said, Eric. I agree with you there. Yeah, the pandemic has really revealed lots of cracks in our international trade system. And we can't always depend on that supply system. So like Eric said, we need to bring those manufacturing jobs back to Ontario where we can build and develop our own things and have our own products here. The economy's been growing at 1% year over year. And so we need to grow that economy. We got to make it friendly for manufacturers to want to come back to Ontario. So at the New Blue Party, we are going to lower taxes, like I said before, from 13 to 10%. We want to reduce the hydro rates, and we want to get rid of Doug Ford's industrial carbon tax. And that will incentivize employers to come back and bring that manufacturing back, and we can have a secure supply chain for the future.
The Ontario NDP would introduce a Buy Ontario for Ontario plan. Buy Ontario through government procurements. We'll engage in strategic government procurement for small and medium-sized businesses and nonprofits. We'll ensure that your small businesses can compete with big industry and use taxpayers' dollars to invest in good jobs right here in Ontario. Our Buy Ontario program will also include a social procurement policy to support diverse workers. We will ensure that our community your community benefits from infrastructure projects. We will require that future contracts for major infrastructure programs contain provisions for mitigating the impact of construction on small business and create local jobs and apprenticeship opportunities.
I think when we're talking about supply chains, this is a common theme. It keeps coming up over and over. There's just an awful lot of red tape in the way. There's an awful lot of government intervention, and it's just unnecessary stress and work. And we have to get in there and we have to look at what's affecting what and remove a lot of that red tape. Fuel tax relief is certainly something we can get the economy going with. The carbon tax is not something, we can't buy our way out of this, so it's not something that's really benefiting. We're finding lots of undue pressure being put on everybody from filling up your little car to running diesel equipment and stuff. It's just too expensive. But I also think that we have to create a system of less foreign dependency, and I think the pandemic really did highlight this. Canada's in a unique position, in Ontario particularly, and Haldimand-Norfolk even more so. We really have everything we need right here. There's no need to be going away and out there for everything else. And I mean, it is nice to be able to have access to some of those things, but the reality is, if we create less foreign dependency and we explore ideas like energy corridors right here within our borders in Canada and within Ontario, then we can reduce a lot of those costs.
We know the provincial and federal governments claim to have taken steps to strengthen supply chains and domestic manufacturing across the country related to the pandemic health measures, but our businesses are continuing to face these enormous challenges when it comes to supply and inventory management. This type of unpredictability threatens business continuity and economic recovery right across Ontario, right here in Haldimand-Norfolk, and across the country. There's an immediate need for temporary supports for businesses disproportionately impacted by the supply chain crisis. As mentioned earlier, a recent report by the Ontario Chamber of Commerce found 62% of sectors in the province are experiencing labor shortages. I have some suggestions for economic recovery. First and foremost, cut taxes, cut red tape. Also create public and private sector collaboration, a workforce development strategy, and we desperately need to bring our ports and infrastructure into the modern world.
Here's something I don't think I've said at a debate night before. We're running ahead of schedule. So we're actually going to take our 10-minute break right now.
How many more questions?
Okay, so we are now going to get back. So if everybody could please take their seats. Pardon me? Why I oughta. Russell, we'll hear from you in October. Okay, so we have, we've been making some really good time here. Gail thinks it's her bell ringing that has kept everybody in line, and
I hate the
her little
bell.
honking, so there we go. So we only have 2 more questions, and then we're going to go to the closing statements. So this time we're going to start with Eric, and the question is, what is the biggest issue that the agriculture community face, and how would you rectify it?
Well, I would have to say that that fuel prices are up very sharply, so that's going to probably be their number 1 issue right now. So I think some relief is in order. I think there needs to be a special program. I recognize that, unlike electric vehicles, agricultural equipment needs to run on fossil fuels because it requires a constant input of that maximum power level, whereas an electric vehicle, it really only needs full power when it's accelerating. So I think some big relief programs should be rolled out, and possibly it could be done with the risk management kind of programs that are already in place. These risk management programs, for people that aren't familiar, mitigate some of the variability of costs and costs of producing agricultural goods, and also the markets that they sell into. So there we go. That's my time.
The government isn't really making it easy on farmers, are they? When I talk to farmers, the number 1 issue that I hear is that operational costs for farmers are rising at an unsustainable rate. Relentlessly, we have seen the government increasing the carbon tax, making diesel prices, fuel skyrocket, and increasing natural gas prices so that drying grain or heating barns becomes prohibitively expensive. That, combined with the increased global demand for fertilizer, is going to drive the price of food through the roof over the next year. Doug Ford and his new friend Justin Trudeau are not consulting with farmers or asking how new environmental initiatives are hurting them. We need to give farmers the support and stability they deserve to be able to grow their crops and feed this country. Make no mistake, the PC party is no longer the party of farmers. Let's be honest, the PC candidate isn't even here tonight. Farmers are the backbone of this community and our local economy. As your local representative, I will be standing up every day at Queen's Park advocating on your behalf and on the behalf of farmers. Thank you.
The biggest issue facing farmers in this region and regions around the world is climate change. The Green New Democratic Deal is a bold but also attainable policy. We will reach net zero emissions by 2050. We will replace a carbon pricing scheme with an NDP cap and trade system. This way, large polluters will pay, not small farms and hardworking Ontarians. Revenue from this system will go towards support for rural communities like ours to help us adapt in research and development. Revenue will be invested in technologies for impacted sectors. We will implement a provincial flooding plan. The NDP will not foist a climate change policy on farmers, letting them figure out how to survive. We see you as valued experts, and we will not only consult you on how we can reach our climate targets, you will be there to develop the policies right along beside us. Thank you.
I think if we're going to address agriculture, I think the best people to ask would be those involved in agriculture. But if it's just an opinion on my mind, and we're seeing a general theme up here, it's going to be operations costs. They're paying increasing costs on the carbon tax. We're paying increased costs on the supply chain stress. It's harder to get parts for the machines and for the equipment. We're seeing all of these different things. So again, we need some kind of a relief plan in effect in order to make it so that they can actually do what they need to do, and we need to get a lot of the red tape out of the way again. Recently, the federal government is specifically targeting grain and dairy farmers as some of the biggest polluters, which means they're now in the crosshairs. So a difficult job is about to get a whole lot more difficult. And I think as a province and as a provincial representative, particularly for the county, we could act as a really strong shield to try and protect the agriculture from the federal infringements on the space and keep them out of the farmlands where they don't actually know about a day's work at all.
Well, this is something I could talk about forever. I hang out with a lot of farmers, and one of the things that I was very concerned about, the spring budget was delivered just a few weeks ago by the Ontario government. Not a mention of food or agriculture in that spring budget, and I can't wait to go to Queen's Park and ask Doug Ford why. Farmers tell me, yes, diesel and fuel prices are a huge concern as they dry down grains, as they have to operate greenhouses. But one of the things that they're very worried about as well is urban sprawl. If you are a farmer, you've probably been following along as OFA's Drew Spolstra, he's the vice president of OFA. He's been penning many newspaper columns and op-eds on the issue of urban sprawl. 175 acres a day is being lost of prime agricultural land in this province. And farmers are very worried about that, especially when developers are lined up at our door looking at our very beautiful farmland. And it is a real concern for them because it's pitting neighbor against neighbor, farmer against farmer.
Yes, farmers are backbone of our community. These are the farmers, because of them, we have bread and butter on our table. So there are a lot of issues farmers have. There is issue of migrant worker, there is issue high fuel cost, high fertilizer cost, supply chain management, and these are the issue, I think, major issues farmers are facing. Farmers in other countries, I saw that farmers get more subsidies. In US, almost 40% subsidies provided by government to the farmer. But it's unfortunate we don't have here. But I believe our farmers deserve much better. They need more subsidies. They need support for new modern equipment, less consuming less fuels, green technology. So our plan is to work with federal government to have a carbon tax rebate for the farmers. We will, okay, thank you.
The last question before we go into closing statements. This will start with you, Nate. What will you do to put our county on the map on the provincial government for infrastructure support, such as domestic water supply, to assist our local builders and contractors?
Good question. I'm all about local representation. So we need more development here in terms of infrastructure to continue to support the amount of people that the province wants us to build up. So if we want to increase that urban density in Simcoe, in the communities around Norfolk and Haldimand, we are going to need that infrastructure support for our municipalities to build that up and allow the density to increase like the province wants us to do. I would also be looking at, yes, going to Queen's Park and just making sure that Norfolk and Haldimand are getting their fair share of infrastructure. Thank you.
We know that this region, Haldimand-Norfolk, has been ignored provincially and federally for far, far too long. We have a conservative at the federal level who is vying for a seat as the leader of the Conservative Party, the federal Conservative Party, and we get no love. We've got lots of people coming here, lots of people seeing the value of small towns. People have been priced out of Hamilton, Toronto. They're coming here. They want to make this place their home. And we see that the governments do support this, except they don't give us anything to help build. So here we are today discussing what's happening at lands in Nanticoke. 15,000 homes. How are we going to do that when we don't have the infrastructure? We don't have the infrastructure in many parts of the region that they're looking to develop. We need better representation here.
When we're talking about infrastructure support, there's an awful lot. I mean, we can all sit up here and every one of us, I'm sure, would go to Queen's Park and we would, advocate for that. Say, we need more. But there's other things that we can do as well. I mean, that's something that we're all going to do. But we have to look at some successful models, and we can even go on a global scale and say, you know what, we're not alone in the way that our demographics are shaped out here. And we look at the landscape and the environment that we have. There are successful models globally where people are able to build an infrastructure around them. And I think that's one of the things that we should explore. We should take a look at some of these other global positions that are doing it better than we are. And we can also take a look and see what they're doing wrong. And we can take lessons from that and try and put something together. Now, I hate the word committee, but I think it'd be a great idea that we formulate a Haldimand and a Norfolk committee, because the difference between Haldimand and Norfolk is pretty vast. And I think that's something that we have to analyze. And within that committee, we get a chance to actually talk to the people and figure out and identify the needs that we have and identify the deficiencies. That's a double bell. My wife's going to want to buy that from you.
One of the things that I would work towards doing as your representative is building those relationships between our municipality, the provincial level, and the federal government. That has been sorely missing. And sometimes that's because there's not a willingness on some of those at some of those levels. I've seen it over the past few years, whereby all of a sudden there's a request for infrastructure dollars to upgrade water systems, and it's gone right through the ministry without our office even knowing. That's a problem. If you need money to upgrade your infrastructure as a municipality, you should be coming to the door of your local representative and saying, hey, Toby Barrett, hey, Bobby Ann Brady, push this forward. So our municipality has to take some responsibility and come and advocate for their citizens at the provincial level so that we can push those projects forward. The money's there.
Yes, water is the basic need of the life. So if I am elected, there is a I believe enough water storage capacity from Lake Erie, which can feed, is enough for the future expansion. But the question is, do we need future expansion here? Our network doesn't support any more 15,000 or more people coming here. We don't have, our roads are not capable to have this much traffic here. In addition, our schools, hospital, nothing is planned accordingly. So bringing people here, and we have to rebuild complete network. If I am elected, I will work with municipalities to upgrade the existing network. We have to build a better road going to Fort Erie, so we can transport our goods there. In addition, we will build here new industries so our children can get jobs. Thank you.
So Norfolk County and Haldimand on the map, I believe that we're already on the map as Ontario's garden, and I think it ought to stay that way. That being said, development is coming. The GTA is up against the green belt, and then the development needs to come this way. And the time is now. It's going to be in the next 20 years. It's going to be remarkable, the changes that we'll see around here. With the population growth, we're going to see a lot more infrastructure coming. Every new building development needs to come along with infrastructure. It just needs to go lockstep. So just someone who makes sure that the developers are, doing their part in building out this infrastructure as they're doing, other projects is going to be key. And we need to protect farmland. We need to make sure that as this development is happening, that it's done in such a way that that we're preserving the farmland and making the best use of the land is my chief concern. So I have no doubt that the development's coming. It's going to happen. It's just, it needs to be done right is what I'm most concerned about.
Now it's time for the closing statements. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes to do so. We'll start in reverse alphabetical order, so this way. Be mindful of the bell. Again, it'll ring at 1:45, and then at 2 minutes, then the dreadful horn after that. Candidates, you now have the floor to tell us why you are the best candidate for Haldimand-Norfolk. Starting with you, Sheldon.
So tonight, we've heard a lot of good solutions and a lot of good ideas from everybody up here. And, the Ontario Party is willing to work with anybody. We start with an open door and a cup of coffee and a hearty handshake, and we say, listen, good ideas are good ideas. It doesn't matter where they come from. And that's something that we can work with anybody, whether it's at the provincial level or at the municipal level. We're willing to work with anybody to try and make a difference. But I can't help but wonder as we sit up here, how do we get here? A lot of people are scared, they're nervous, they're upset, they're frustrated, and they're angry. And I'm one of them. And you wonder how we got here. And I say, legacy politicians, legacy politics, they've had decades to erode our trust. Politicians used to be a noble profession. It used to be an honorable job. It's not so anymore. And I think that they've had their time. And I think it's time that we return the power to us. I think we return the whole idea of the House of Commons to common people. I think it's time for a change. We need real representation. But representation that has party support. Party support from leaders like Derek Sloan and leaders like Rick Nichols. We have a wide variety of candidates running in over 105 ridings with the Ontario Party. Everything from logistics to engineers to doctors to retired police officers, firefighters. The list is long. The thing is, I am you. I've got dirt on my boots. I know what a hard day's work looks like. I know how hard it is to make a business, to actually make a go of things. I know how to be a father. I know how to be a husband. Don't sell at your values. We're not going to have a party whip. That's something we're committed to. A party that stands for electoral reform, MPP, recall legislation. Don't sell at your values. When we go to the polls on June 2nd, I ask you for once, stand by what you're committed to. Don't try and vote someone out. Vote someone in. Stand by somebody who's willing to fight for what's right and who is willing to stand and say the power needs to return to the people that belong in power, we the people.
So here I am, Sarah Lowe, your NDP candidate for Haldimand-Norfolk. It's been quite a week. It's been quite a couple of weeks, but in preparation for these debates, so this is our third night debating, I have been poring over the NDP platform, the platform that I am extremely proud of. I am a longtime New Democrat. There's a few of you in here as well. I'm sure you can agree with me. The NDP is not going to check every single one of your boxes. Honestly, they don't check every single one of my boxes. But the reality is the platform that we have in front of us, the platform that we will implement once elected, works for the majority of Ontarians. There's a little bit for everyone. And I'm not talking piecemeal for everyone. I'm talking about some big, big changes that will improve the lives of Ontario. I invite you all to look at all of our platforms. Go home tonight, research the new parties, research the NDP, research the Conservatives, research the Liberals. Go through those platforms like I have my own platform in the last week. See what connects you. Maybe something that's in the platform you didn't hear about tonight touches you. I beg you, look at what all of us stand for and make your decision, not what you've heard tonight, because tonight's questions that we have no control over. So there's lots of things that I really, really wanted to share with you, some great, big, bold ideas that I wasn't given the opportunity. Please, do your research. Look at what we have to offer. Look at our track record. Then make your decision. And I know that you'll be voting NDP on June 2nd.
The people of Haldimand-Norfolk have a choice this June. Will they continue to vote for the establishment parties, parties that leave our kids legacies of debt, parties that only work for lobbyists and party insiders? Or will they choose a new party, a party founded on the values that most Ontarians agree on? Values like freedom to work and enjoy the fruit of your labor, freedom from government overreach, equal access to opportunities and equal treatment under the law. We don't have to settle for parties where lobbyists, big unions, and big corporations get special treatment, and you and I get the regular bureaucracy. The PC party has become the provincial wing of the Justin Trudeau Liberals, teaming up to help each other spend more money. They are no longer the party of the people. Like I said before, they're not even here asking for your vote. It's time to bring a new, fresh Conservative party that will hold true to Conservative values. The New Blue Party is poised and ready to replace the PC party as the true Conservative Party of Ontario. We have candidates running in every single one of the 124 ridings this election. Let's bring back local representation to Ontario. Let's bring back principled and accountable government with the New Blue. I've been knocking on doors and talking to folks these past couple weeks, and the desire for change is here in Haldimand-Norfolk. Join us to be a part of that change, to bring the power back to the people and to get this province back on track for us and for our kids. The best is yet to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Simcoe District Chamber of Commerce and Real Estate Board for hosting this evening. So, as a successful engineer and project developer with interests in agriculture, believe me, I'm not aspiring to be in politics for personal reasons. I'm here tonight because I really believe the Green Platform is the best plan for Ontario. Mike Schreiner, I believe, is, he also really convinced me to run. I know him personally. I helped him get elected as the first Green NPP in Guelph. And I'm very confident that he is, by far the leader with the most integrity of those people that were participating in the leader debate. And I believe he's really got the plan. I think we all need to get behind him. I think he deserves to be the new premier of the province, and I think we can all be proud of that. Everyone I talk to door, they know society has not been headed in the right direction for some time. Even the powers that be feel this, but they blame factors out of their control. I want everyone to ask themselves, what party is really offering leadership? To me, it requires a vision, a place that we need to go, an idea that we need to inspire to. It demands courage to change the status quo. And most importantly, it requires people to believe in something enough to follow that leader. So I challenge you all to believe in something greater than the status quo. I challenge you all to vote Green June 2nd.
Thank you. I am Aziz Chaudhry, Ontario Liberal Party candidate. Thank you to all of you for listening. Ontario Liberal Party approach is to make life much more affordable for everyone, to make Ontario livable for everyone. We want to transform Ontario mental health response. We want to address long-term care units. We want to reduce the lack of access needed for surgeries. There are a lot of issues we have. We want to spend $10 billion on new schools. We will bring 100,000 new doctors and nurses in next 6 years. So every community have doctors and nurses available. I know there are a lot of issues, farming issues. Our farmers need migrant workers. There are a lot of red tape here. We will work with federal government to reduce this time. We'll work to get subsidies on the fertilizer and other equipment they need. In addition, I know we will support farmers to bring environment-friendly or green technology for the new equipments. We'll work on supply chain management. I know Haldimand-Norfolk hospital, as we discussed before, there's not enough capacity. We will increase the hospital capacity. We will work to increase the new courses in Fanshawe College. We will want to have one healthcare, long-term healthcare system, which is for all Ontario. We will not have any private long-term care home or any hospitals where rich can go and other Ontarios are waiting. We want one healthcare system for everybody, so we want to treat everybody equally. So rich and other people, everybody should stand in one line once there is a healthcare system. In addition, if you elect me, sorry. It's a dangerous spell.
Thank you again for hosting us this evening and for all the fantastic questions. In my 23 years, I have spoken to so many of you. You have lost hope. You are worried about your future, the future of your grandchildren and your children. You have grown cynical of leaders and governance. Rightfully so. So have I. You must ask yourself, why didn't you have a say with regard to who the PC candidate would be here in Haldimand-Norfolk? Why was democracy sidelined? And where is that candidate? We've talked about a city of 40,000 at Nanticoke, a city that will see the jobs of steel and refinery workers lost forever. We must do politics differently. It's apparent to many of us that elites and special interests have infiltrated and hijacked the process. Will I split the vote in Haldimand-Norfolk? The answer is no. I have been overwhelmed by the support and encouragement from all three main political parties. These folks are community-minded people. They understand that Haldimand-Norfolk's honesty and integrity should always win the day for our betterment. Not only will I fight against the city of 40,000, but I'll also fight to reduce the cost of living, create housing that is affordable, stand up for our farmers, improve health care, expand long-term care, create good-paying jobs, and create those incentives to work, fix mental health and addictions, cut taxes and red tape, end the financial punishment for those on ODSP, and boost our local economy. There's a great deal of fear-mongering out there, and I know where it's coming from. They say an independent has no voice. I'm sure you've witnessed tonight, I have a large voice, and I will not be intimidated, and I will not be deterred. Our team is winning. I know this, but I need all of you to stand with me and be brave. Once Haldimand-Norfolk chooses me to represent them at Queen's Park, I will not be told to stand down on any issue due to party politics. What is important to you will make it to the floor of the Ontario Legislature. Haldimand-Norfolk has a choice. Choose elites, special interest, or backroom deals, or choose Bobby Ann Brady, the girl with respected service across Haldimand-Norfolk, Queen's Park, and the province.
Okay, so I'm just going to do some closing statements here. I want to thank all the candidates for sharing your thoughts with us this evening and for your commitment to our community and our province. I'm sure tonight's discussion will greatly assist the residents of Haldimand-Norfolk in making their very important decision on June the 2nd. Thank you to the Simcoe and District Real Estate Board for sponsoring the event and to the Delhi Chamber of Commerce for taping this evening. The video footage will be available on all County Chamber of Commerce websites in the following days, hopefully tomorrow, if not sooner. I'm looking at the videographer back there. I'd also like to take this time to thank our chamber staff, Terry and Mariana, for all the work that they did to plan this evening's event, and also the board of directors that are here this evening. And thank the co-moderator, Matt LeBlanc, for helping out this evening as well, too. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say thank you to the strictest bell ringer going out there. I'm sure you guys are all, yeah, oh, I forgot about the horn. I forgot about that horn. So thank you, Gail, for keeping us on time. And we are really on time because we're like 34 minutes ahead of time. So that is wonderful. So I think, so thank you to all the candidates for following. You guys all did an amazing job. And you followed suit, and I think, being the third debate in a row, I'm sure you guys are thanking us for that extra little bit of time that we're going to give you back. And I'd also like to thank the Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 78, for hosting the event this evening, and the many volunteers and staff who put together the program. They set up all the chairs and everything. Be sure to vote on June the 2nd. More information is available to you at elections.on.ca. If you don't have that voice and cast your ballot, then I don't think that you've got, well, maybe I shouldn't say this, but anyways, this is my thought. If you don't vote, then you don't have the right to complain about what's happening. So I'm just going to say that. And yeah, sorry, it wasn't on the agenda, but maybe I'll get in trouble again. So again, thank you to all candidates. You were great this evening. And thank you everyone for attending the all candidates debate. Thank you very much.